So, welcome to the first ever Blonde and Strong podcast. I'm Shar, the host. This is a podcast of strength and empowerment. Each episode is dedicated to helping our listeners improve their health, well-being, learn, grow, and unlock their strength from the inside out. Through open, honest, unfiltered conversations, our inspirational guests bear all by sharing their knowledge, experience, strength, and hope about everything from their strength through adversity, health, wellness, mental health, self-care routines, post-traumatic growth, bravery, triumph, the list goes on. A little disclaimer for you though, episodes will contain explicit content. There will be swearing, but this is a safe space for people to be open, honest, raw, and powerful through their vulnerability without shame or judgment. No topic is off limits as long as it has the intention of empowering our listeners. Look, I'm not a journalist or a podcaster. I have no idea what the hell I'm doing, but I feel called to create this podcast, so I'm going to do it anyway and learn and grow as I go along. I hope you'll grow along with me. What I do know is that in my darkest times, it was the courage of others who were willing to bare their souls, share their experience and their knowledge, their love and guidance that gave me the strength to endure. Without their bravery, honesty, and compassion, I wouldn't be alive, never mind recording this podcast. Of that, I'm certain. Those beautiful people taught me you have to give it away to keep it. So now it's my turn. If even one person finds strength and hope as a result of this podcast, then it'll all be worth it. Our growth is our own responsibility. No one can do the work for us, but I truly believe we are stronger together. So welcome, and thank you for taking the time to listen. So episode 1, we have the incredible Natalie Guyan. So I just want to welcome you to the Blonde and Strong podcast. For those listening, Natalie Guyan is a food and fitness mentor. She's an entrepreneur and multi-business owner, TEDx speaker, author, coach, transformation queen, becoming Shira, mother, half of the Guyan power couple, and all around badass, and I can't wait for you to meet her. So Natalie, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so just to ease you in gently, we're gonna play a little game of this or that. Okay. And this is just gonna help the listeners get to know you a little bit better before we get on to all the juicy bits. Okay,
let's go.
Ready? So just the first thing that comes to mind, don't overthink it, all right? Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Phone call or text?
Text.
Beach or mountains?
Mountains. I live in the most perfect mountain village in the world. Mountains.
Coffee or tea?
Unless it's like the Philippines, then I probably would go beach.
Okay. I mean, just don't overthink it though.
Okay.
Coffee or tea?
Did you just tell me not to overthink something?
No, it's this or that. So it's like one or the other, but like just the first thing that comes to mind. And to be fair, you do live in the most beautiful mountainous region next to the beach. So you have the best of both worlds. So I'll give you that.
Yeah.
So coffee or tea?
Coffee.
City or countryside?
Countryside.
Winter or summer?
Summer.
Connection or isolation?
Really? I can't overthink these things?
No.
Do like a bit of solidarity, but connection is important to me.
Okay. Bath or shower?
I'm a dirty bitch. I like to swim in my own shit in a mag bath.
Okay. See, I feel like everyone knows you better already. Okay, IQ or EQ?
EQ.
Love or money?
Love.
Depth or width? Like, honestly. Keep it clean. We are like 2 minutes into the first ever podcast.
Gotta go for the girth. Width.
Right. Width. Okay. And would you rather be right or happy? Happy. Amazing. Okay, so now that we've had the little pleasantries out of the way and people have a better idea about who you are, I just want you to...
The wit thing was a real giveaway. Everybody's going to know my deepest, darkest secrets from the wit thing.
I mean, okay, so that question in particular, I threw it in. For me, the purpose of the question, which I know...
Depth or width?
So the purpose of the actual question is about depth of connection in relationship, or width as far as like your reach of connections. So it's like, would you rather have deeper connections and less of them, or would you rather have a wider reach of connections, a higher volume of connections, reach more people, have a bigger width, but have it be at a more superficial, more shallow level? So for me, and I know...
No, asking me that question, that was not on my radar, not at all.
I know. I mean, I do feel like it's one of those little...
And the importance of squatting. No? No.
Of course. You definitely need big, wide thighs for that. But then with the squat, you need the depth as well.
This is true.
So, I mean, I feel like it's one of those red herring questions. I just know it's going to get some funny answers. I like to be minorly controversial, but the purpose of the question is actually quite a deep one. But I like that it kind of like throws people, because everyone I've asked the question to so far just goes,
Say that you prefer it deep.
Oh yeah, I'm a depth girl all the way. For sure.
We're clear on that.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to get serious and we're going to help people. Okay. Okay. All right, Nat. Well, again, thank you for joining us. And I just want you to tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what it is you're doing right now.
Okay, so who am I? That's a very open question. I think I'm quite multi-faceted, but right now I'm focusing a lot on helping people to become the best version of themselves. Bit of a cheesy line to put that in, but I'm a big believer in empowering women. I like to think that I can help inspire, empower, and educate people through things that I've learned myself in my journey through food and through fitness. So at the moment, that's a big focus on mine, and I'm reaching out to people through different platforms trying to make it possible.
Amazing. So like at the moment, it's the food and fitness mentorship that you're really focusing on, right?
Yeah, I mean, over the last 3 years, there's been some personal developments for me in a professional capacity where I've been able to pass on from my own experience. And you can't really separate food from fitness in my opinion. So I do combine them very much together. I'm very passionate about those two elements and how it can enhance your health. And it's very rewarding for me to be able to pass that on to people. I enjoy connecting with people and helping them realize their own potential as well. So it's a big focus of mine at the moment.
So you did mention there that your sort of driver for getting into this sort of a business to help people was through your own experiences. So maybe you could tell people a little bit about what your transformation journey was like, because for those of you that don't know Natalie, she has had the physical transformation of the century. I will post pictures of it because you won't believe it when you see it. It's one of those, that's not the same person. It is the same person. Maybe not in her mindset. Maybe her mindset's a little bit different, but honestly, it's the most incredible transformation. So maybe you can talk us through a little bit about that, Natalie. Take us back to your past and explain to everybody where you came from.
Okay, so if we look at the physical transformation, and I'm not sure if you're sharing the picture here at this moment, when you look at a physical transformation like this, and I'm going to take it back, it's very easy, as you say, to say, well, that's not the same person, or how long did that take, or how much did that person lose? And through the last few years, I really thought of actually what I've gained in this journey. So if I can go through my physical transformation, first of all, because for want of a better word, I never realised where I was when I started. I never realised how I'd got myself into that situation, and I never saw it coming. But by setting my sights on losing the 40 kilos that I have and going from obese to being an athlete, I unlocked a lot of stuff inside of myself as well. So finding a lot of self-fulfillment. So in a nutshell, I've gone from being in excess of over 100 kilos. The photo was taken when my eldest daughter was 6 months old. I didn't see myself as I appear in that photo. I had no real recollection of how much weight I'd gained. I think I can safely say I suffered with body dysmorphia. When you gradually gain weight, as I had done, you don't see it coming, you don't recognise those changes. So when you're looking in the mirror at the same person every day, you don't see it. When I saw that photo, I identified that I needed to make some changes. And over the last, 12 years, over the last 12 years, I have done every single diet under the sun. You name it, I've done it. Whether it be the cabbage soup diet, I've done slim patches, I've done Weight Watchers, Slim and World, Slim Fast, I've counted calories, I've done Dukan, I've done Atkins, I've done other forms of ketosis. And it's led me round to where I am now with a much better understanding of what really does work. Along with that, I've done every single type of exercise as well, from going in the wrong direction at Zumba classes to feeling out of place in bums and tums, to doing circuit training for and running with running clubs and doing marathons, OCR, CrossFit, bodybuilding, powerlifting. I've done a little bit of everything, and everything along the way has really helped me discover what I like most, what I enjoy, and how to sustain both my fitness and my health through food going forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Loads. And I mean, you are like an athlete, one of the most competitive people I know. You push yourself so hard, so determined, just goal after goal after goal smashed physically and also in other ways. So you did mention in that transformation journey for you, although it was a physical one, and about weight that you lost, which I believe was in excess of 40 kilos overall, right?
Yeah, I mean, at my heaviest, I didn't own any scales. I didn't have any clue how much I weighed, and I didn't buy a scale straight away when I decided to make some changes. That was a little bit intermittent, deciding whether what changes I was going to make, and being in a bit of denial at first, until I had a heart scare, which not only was the physical element needing to change, it wasn't just, oh, I'm obese, I need to change it for aesthetics. My health was on the line. So when I did finally pick up some scales, I was somewhere just under the 17 stone mark, and I'd already been making some changes over a couple of months towards that. So I'd already dropped some weight. So I don't know what the starting figure was, but at my lowest weight, I got down to 9.5 stone, which I can come into in a minute, but it wasn't a sustainable or a healthy weight to be at. So quite a dramatic amount of weight loss.
Yeah, that's a huge amount. But you also touched on the fact that the transformation was less about what you lost and more about what you gained.
Absolutely.
So what was that? You tell us what you
Okay.
gained from that.
So, I went over very quickly that I've tried lots of different sports and activities, and through that you get to meet lots of different people and people with a different mindset as well. And I do very much believe that everybody that you meet in life has a bearing for your days forward from that point. In any case, it's all subliminal messages. If you keep your eyes and your ears open, you're always going to learn from people that you're meeting in your life. So connections, as you mentioned, and meeting people have been a huge gain for me, a huge gain. But self-discovery as well, finding out about what you really are capable of, you know, and self-belief. And when you can install a little bit of, oh, I never thought I was going to be able to do that, but I did. What else can I do? Let's try that. And, oh, I can do it. Let's try something else. It gives you a little bit more confidence to then step into things outside of food and fitness, like taking business risks or requalifying in a completely different sector. So from there, the self-confidence that I've gained from it, the knowledge and the connections that I've met through people, and the deeper understanding of myself and what I can pass on to others as well, has really enriched my life. I feel as if I'm wealthy from experience, you know, what I've learned, what I've gained. And we all can do that. It's not just down on losing weight. It's about that process in between. You know, I did my TED talk was on being designed to fail, and through your failures you learn, and those failures enriched me and made me more knowledgeable and wealthier.
That's incredible. So would it be fair to say then, do you think in your experience that key to kind of everlasting sustainable change, you know, like when you look at the whole change process and the psychology behind change behavior, and would you say that one of the biggest things for you within that process has been learning, which then gives you confidence when you then learn something new and achieve and succeed at it? That builds up your confidence a little bit more to go and try something and learn something new again. And then that just keeps building and building and building. And eventually you see yourself, you know, you're 10 steps ahead of where you were. Obviously, we all know that change and progress is never linear, but that learning and growing process, building your self-confidence and learning to trust yourself and have that belief in yourself.
Yeah, I think if I break it down, the simplest term for me to do this is to accept that you're not perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm far from being perfect. And when you accept that and you realize that you don't know everything, and you open up your mind to learning and progressing from your own failures, owning your failures, accepting the mistakes that you've made or are making, and using them to readdress and to change, it opens out so many doors. Like, for example, in my TED talk, I talk about how I got into recruitment and making an absolute balls up of the first interview that I went to. And then I learned from those mistakes and I took it into the next interview, got the job. And exactly the same has gone with the fitness transformation when you look at food. Okay, so if you put an expectation on yourself that you're perfect and you're not going to fail on this diet that you put yourself in a box to do, and then you do have a bad day, and then you think, oh, and you give yourself too much of a hard time for it, that you go in the wrong diet, you fall back into a backwards direction. What have you taken from that? Whereas if you go into the mindset of, I'm just going to try and do my best today, this is what I'm going to try and do, and you accept that there is room for failure. And if you do, you learn why you did it. You know, you have to identify, why did I make that mistake, or what can I learn from that and go forward. And I think I'm probably waffling a little bit here. So let me just categorize this, for example. here we go. So you, for example, on a diet, you're out with your mates, you decide to have a drink on a Friday night, and then you end up sleeping in the next day. We've probably all done this. In you feeling crap, so you're eating the crap food, and then you feel like you're an absolute failure. And then come Monday, the diet doesn't start again, and you gain the weight back, rather than just thinking or making allowances to learn from that, what that situation was and how you could perhaps do things differently the next time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And it always reminds me, I remember Charles Poliquin used to always say to, the people that he was coaching, you can eat whatever you want as long as you don't feel guilty about it, because it's the guilt that'll make you fatter than the food that you're eating. The guilt that you put on yourself is such a stressor in the body, mentally and physically, that it'll stop you from losing fat and achieving your goal anyway. So like, eat it and be happy about it, or don't eat it and whatever, learn from your mistake. But feeling guilty about not being perfect is an absolute waste of time and energy.
The thing is, though, you've just hit the nail on the head here, and I'm probably digressing a little bit, but society kind of puts this on us. Social media, Instagram, Facebook, look at this person, look like this, be like this. And I think there was a great short video that was released. Be a lady, don't eat so much, don't do this, don't do that. And it was brilliant. It's all of this mixed message. And you're constantly feeling like you're running up against a wall, that if you're not this, you're a failure. And rather than being, well, actually, I'm not designed to be perfect. I am, by very human nature, we are designed for evolution. We are designed to evolve in our environment. And that's exactly what you need to do. So rather than thinking I have to stop now or retract because I didn't succeed at this day, or the perception of success, it sets you back tenfold, exactly as you say in there. And funnily enough, the reward and the guilt systems in the mind are carried in the same space. So the body's response to almost misunderstanding or thinking of guilt as a reflex to reward is subliminal and in the subconscious a lot of the time as well. So it can set off a whole different course of actions to it.
I wonder if that is related at all to the whole like pleasure pain phenomenon as well. I wonder if they come, and I've totally digressed there, but that's something I'm going to look into. Note to self. No, I completely agree with you. For me, the phrase perfectly imperfect, either way. I mean, I use it all the time. Perfectly imperfect. We are perfect just as we are. We are perfectly imperfect and exactly where we're supposed to be at any given moment to learn the biggest lessons we can and become the best versions of ourselves all the times. I believe it's just up to us to be aware of those and look out for those and learn from them, as opposed to punishing ourselves for it. And exactly like what you were saying about getting curious, as we get older, when we were children, when we were little kids, we didn't know anything, and we approached everything with this curiosity and excitement and mischievous nature. Like we were interested in how things worked, and we wanted to figure them out, and we would try. I mean, think about when you were crawling or you were walking or you were like, oh, fire, what's that? You touch it, it burns, you realize it's hot, you don't touch it again, like
exactly like that.
Right?
Exactly like
and
that.
If we could, it's like as we get older, we are conditioned to lose that curiosity, that excitement about learning something new, about, if we fall, like what didn't work, what worked, what can we try different next time? Like we were born with that kind of mindset, and somehow we get conditioned against that to think that everything has to be done right the first time. If we don't do it right the first time, we're a failure. And then we hold ourselves back. It's one of the biggest lessons I've learned. I mean, this is my first ever podcast. I have no fucking clue what I'm doing at all. right? Let's make that very clear. I'm doing this all by myself. I haven't got a producer or a team of tech people who are going to edit this for me. I'm going to wing it. I'm going to figure it out by myself. Is this first podcast going to be perfect? Hell no, it's not, but I'm going to learn. Like, we've already tried recording this once before. Like, full disclosure, it didn't work out very well. So we're doing it again. But like, we could have
the failure. You have to make room for failure. And it's by the way, our very nature of reproduction, we are a progressed version of our parents, even, we are an evolution of our parents. So it's the very design. But society at the moment inflicts this belief on people that if there's an imperfection, filters, look at that for an example. That if there is a blemish or something that needs like a stretch mark, let's edit it out, let's filter this, let's Photoshop that, let's crop this. And it's bullshit, because life isn't like that, and it just ends up making you feel less worthy. Whereas if you actually just take a moment to go, all right, okay, now this is who I am, but I want to feel a different one, I want to be able to achieve this, or I want to be able to do that, that's great. But take it easy on yourself. There's going to be a learning journey, and you need to take what you can from the journey in the day. So, okay, you're working towards something, and what do you get back from the day that you put in? What did you get from it? What did you take from it? That's the enriching part. That's what's making you a better version of yourself. What you actually learn from the day, not whether you end the day with an A star. It's the process.
It's always the journey, not the destination. I know they sound cheesy, those like memes and quotes that you see everywhere, but they're famous for a reason, and it is true. It is all about the journey. I know I was trying to gather some information before I started putting this podcast together, and a friend of mine, John, has a podcast, and he keeps pushing. He's like, when are you getting the first one out? When are you doing it? And I'm like, oh, well, I haven't got this and I haven't got that. And he just sent me a message. He went, you're not the fucking BBC, man. Get it done. Get it out. Nobody cares. And it's so true. It's so true. So like, what's your moment in that? When it comes to, both of us have our own like physical transformation journeys for our health and our well-being. For you, what were the biggest lessons that you learned along the way? As far as making those mistakes, having those failures, what are the things that stuck with you and really helped you get to where you wanted to be long term?
Right now, when I reflect on that question, it is about looking within yourself and looking at the answers within yourself, because your journey and my journey are two completely different journeys. And
very much.
And I have to think of this, especially when I'm trying to work with clients as well. And when people see me and they see that transformation, you're going to want to know, like, what's the magic answer there? Where's your magic wand? How do I go from that point to that point? And I'm going to tell you now, you're not me. So what works for me is not going to work for you. You need to really look at yourself, and you need to break yourself down and look at who you are and what your limiting factors are and what you like in life, what you like doing, what you enjoy, what kind of food do you like, what kind of activity do you like? Do you like training on your own? Do you like being in a group? You need to think about yourself as a unique individual. And the key thing that I've learned is, for all my imperfections, which I'm perfectly happy with, I'm not perfect, but that's okay, because I'm me, and within me I know what I like and what I dislike and what works for me. And if I try and do what works for you, I'm not going to be happy, because they're your likes. So the biggest thing that I've worked with is actually doing what I like and eating the food that I like. For example, just make a few small adjustments. I don't need to eat someone else's diet. It's very important to look within yourself. And if you don't mind me just taking back for a minute here, right? So, okay, before I was a food and fitness mentor, it's well known, I run a recruitment business with my husband. And I do value myself on my consultancy approach. And again, this sounds a little bit cheesy, so bear with me a second and I'll just explain this to you. So what do I mean by a consultancy approach? So when I got my second job in recruitment, because the first company I worked for was a bit of a, well, they were giving me, someone with no experience, an opportunity. Grateful for that, then progressed myself. And I was given the opportunity to work for a company called Hill McGlynn. And they were the second largest recruitment company in the construction industry. Now, these guys were like the elite. These guys, super, super polished. They only employed recruitment consultants that had a degree and a specialism in the area that they recruited for. Now, I managed to wingle my way, for want of a better word, I blagged my way through the interview, right? So I got into the interview, I'm there, managed to hit it off with the guys, got the job. But the thing is, this is like now, I'm working for a recruitment company, we're talking 15 years ago. So your experience now of a recruitment consultant is probably that of a second-hand car salesman, for example. Back then, working for them, it was like this. I was not allowed to go and see a client or interview a candidate unless I was accompanied by a senior consultant within the business. And I had to do that for 6 months. And for me to be able to go and see a client or interview a candidate on my own, I had to sit assessment exams for how to correctly interview a client, and then you would have to write up notes so that you fully understood that business as if you worked for them. And the same with interviewing a candidate. You would have to go through that individual, everything about them, their whole personal makeup, what they wanted for their future, what was important to them now, how they did things on a day-to-day basis, who they worked with, how they felt about that, so that you almost were inside that person's head. And then you could only put across your clients or your candidates to your clients if you'd met them on a face-to-face. So incredibly, incredibly detailed. And I loved it. If you had cut me, I would have bled for Hill McGlynn. Beautiful company to work for from a point of view of I felt proud to work for a company that really represented quality and value. You know, they believed in what they did. It was a very, very quality driven process, and I thrived there and I loved it. And I believe that I use everything that I've learned there in a very, very detailed manner to work with the clients that I work with now. And I don't have an on-the-shelf package or a meal plan that I can give to lots of different people. It doesn't work like that. So if you've seen anything out there, buy this meal plan, we've got all of these people it's working for, it's bullshit, because you're different. You're not like that person next to you. And it's important that you take a consultative approach to yourself and you really go through, create your own life CV of what it is that you want to do with your food and your fitness. What is it that you really like? How is your day structured? What do you want to get out of your day? What's most important to you? What time do you have left to do things? And then look at what fits your model, because there isn't an off-the-shelf package for how to make a best version of you.
Well, that is the absolute truth. Everybody is different, as we all know. I mean, what works for you doesn't work for me. We know that. Like we're like polar opposites, you know. What are we? We're that meme. We're the bikini competitor Barbie and CrossFit Barbie. We're just so different, you know. Like if I had to do your training regime, I mean, I would be injured and dead. I'd be miserable. I'd hate it. If you had to do mine, you'd be bored out of your mind. Like you would hate every minute of it. We enjoy completely different types of exercise, working in different energy systems. Like we're just so different. I mean, we do like to eat.
Everyone is, you know, a lot of people are. And there is no right or wrong way to exercise. The only wrong way, in fact, the only wrong way to exercise is doing something that you really detest and wasting your life eating food that you don't like.
Well, exactly that.
Moving in a way that and it doesn't have to be. And I think I had a comment the other day. I was trying to understand in my group, actually, from a more of a widespread, what diets have they done? What did they like? What didn't they like? Because I'm trying to get a breakdown of a bit more of a wider perspective, and for them to think, because let's just take the term diet. It's largely associated with a short-term fix, but actually the word diet is relative to what we eat and our lifestyle surrounding those things. So if you think about it from a wider perspective, if you look back through all of the diets that you've done, and you just make a list of pros and cons, and then look for the gaps. What do you like to eat in a healthy capacity? What do you like to eat? What absolutely don't you like to eat? But a lot of people are stuck in this mindset that they can't have dairy, that they can't have gluten, or they can't have bread, or they can't have this, and they got to eat all the Brussels sprouts. It doesn't have to be like that. Have pizza, just don't have it every night, for example. So it's really important for people to actually look at what makes them happy and make sure that things align with their goals that also makes them happy every day, so they can reflect in what they're taking from the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot within that as well, though. You're talking about everybody. I think there's a lot of self-awareness involved in it that people don't fully understand. If you get somebody coming to both you and I have had experience in training clients with fitness and nutrition, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's not something I'm involved in so much anymore, but that is your day-to-day of what's really alive for you right now. But I would be willing to guess that both of us, as well as every other trainer out in the planet, has experienced, people coming to you saying, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to eat. I don't know how to train. I don't know this. I don't know that. Like, I eat really well. I eat chicken and broccoli and I'm still putting weight on, and and mm-hmm. You really have to drill down into all of that. They want to lose weight or lose fat or be healthier, feel fitter, all of these different things, when they come to you, and you want to help them with that. But what I used to find was there was the gap was in the level of self-awareness and the ability to be really brutally honest with yourself about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And I can guarantee, people would come in and they'll let you beast them. They will let you put them through the most extreme killer workout and they'll do it. They will do it. But then you'll say, right, now I want you to go home and I want you to answer these 5 questions on self. I want you to take a little bit of time, do a little bit of self-reflection about what you ate, how you felt when you ate it, why you chose that, what your relationship with food was when you were younger, and get them to really start trying to think about the emotional side of it and the psychological attachment to all that kind of stuff. And they'll be like, can I just take a fat burner? Can I just do this? They want the pill, the magic pill, the quick fix, the overnight. Can't I just do a 3-week boot camp? Can't I just
I think the reason that people do that is because they think that the dieting and the exercising process has to be grueling and punishing. So they want to get to the quick fix because they want to bypass things that they feel or perceive are going to make them unhappy. And it just doesn't have to be that way. And it goes back to interviewing yourself for the life that you want and really understanding what it is that you like to do rather than what you think you like to do. So, for example, this is something that we've spoken about before. Okay, so let's take smoking, for example. Yeah. I'm going to steal that one. Smoking, for example, somebody that smokes, if they just stop and think for a moment, okay, what do they get out of it? And you can argue the point of what they're getting is a moment of calm, deep breathing, yeah, and reflection on what they're doing. But can they get that same thing from something else? No, they're not going to get the nicotine hit from meditation, but spending a few minutes of meditating is still going to give them that sense of calm and deep breathing. So it's really looking about what you're getting from what you're doing. You like pizza, great. Okay, so make your own. just modify the ingredients, use a little bit less cheese, use a smaller piece of bread or a slightly smaller portion, but don't ban it from your life. Or think about, what is it that you get from the pizza that you like? Is it that Italian flavour? Can you get that from other foods? Can you get that same sensation? Actually break it down to what you do like about what it is that you're doing. I don't like running. Okay, why is that? Why don't you like running? Break it down to what it is that you don't like about it, and swap it for something that you do like. You don't. Most people feel like they need to lose weight, and I've done this as well. Right? Okay, so what do I need to do? I need to cut back on all the carbs. No carbs. Yeah. Then I need to run, and I'm going to run every day for an hour, every day, all the cardio, no carbs. And then all of a sudden you see that the weight has rescinded off the scale because your body is emptied of water and you're drastically losing muscle mass. You feel tired, shitty and fatigued. No, you're not eating carbs, so you feel miserable about that. You're having to go and run and it's boring the shit out of you doing the same loop every day. No wonder you want a pill to skip that process. But what if you went for a walk, or you changed it up and played with your kids, and you didn't reduce all of the carbs from your diet? You just made adjustments to all of the portions throughout the day and ate in a bit more of a balanced capacity and enjoyed what you did every day. Then it wouldn't be such a grueling task and you wouldn't be looking for the magic pill. But the answers for what changes and adjustments you need to make lay within yourself. You need to interview yourself as if you were interviewing yourself for your dream job or your dream aspirations or your dream happiness, and where you really want to be, what you want in your everyday life, what you want to achieve every day whilst you're getting to that process. And look at sustaining happiness in your day and enjoying the journey, as cheesy as it is, rather than trying to make yourself miserable along the way. There's absolutely no joy in hating yourself enough to do a workout. I've done that before as well, and I don't recommend it. Spend a bit of time on the self-understanding. Like you said, that's where the hard work is. Spend
absolutely.
time really thinking about it, and challenge yourself in that thought process of what it is you really want, what will really make you happy, and you'll find a lot of answers that are a lot less grueling.
Yeah, I mean, self-awareness really is the key to finding I don't even like to use the word happiness, to be honest, but with any kind of transformation, when we are trying to build the life that we want for ourselves, that's fulfilled, joyous, have loving relationships with ourselves and with other people, like self-awareness is always the key. Being able to make that connection, figuring out exactly like you said. I mean, we had that talk about the smoking, full disclosure, when I was younger, I was a smoker. I gave up because I was having brain surgery, and I was scheduled to go in for my brain surgery, and I ended up with bronchitis and tracheitis. So they wouldn't do it because it was too dangerous to be put under a general anesthetic. So they rescheduled the brain surgery. And I remember thinking, like, I can't keep smoking if I've had a chest infection and I have to have this brain surgery. Like, the brain surgery could kill me. So I should probably try and give myself the best chance to live. So I'll knock the fags on the head. So I left the cigarettes and thought, okay, I'm just going to stop smoking now and give myself the best chance of staying alive. Because I was at a point where, like, I was really, really ill, and death was imminent. So stopped smoking, and I never smoked again for years and years and years and years. And then I went through a very traumatic and stressful time, and I was out with a friend of mine, and we were just having a drink and a chat, and she smokes, and I was like, oh, give me one of those. And she's like, you haven't smoked in 15 years, you're not having one. And I was like, I only want one, I'll be fine, I can just have one. I mean, a year later, I was like smoking 10 a day. Like, I not only did I not just smoke one, but I was smoking many. And you know what? I thoroughly enjoyed every single cigarette that I had. And if it wasn't bad for you, I'd probably still be smoking now. But, you know, it isn't in alignment with who I am. I have a full and active, healthy lifestyle, and I plan on living very long into my late years. I'd love to hit 100. That would be awesome. And with things the way they are right now, there's no reason why I can't do that. So, you know, smoking is
old age Barbie in honor of you, if you have.
that would be amazing. But yeah, definitely, you know, so I thought smoking's not really in alignment with who I am. And exactly like that, I had to ask myself, you know, what am I getting out of smoking? Like, what is it that really draws me and pulls me to it? Besides the drug nicotine addiction and rush that I get from it. And the 100% like being to really go inside myself and ask myself that question and then listen for the answer. And the answer was, do you know what? That is that time where I can just stand there and be 100% completely present in the moment, breathing in and out. You know, there's nothing else to think about, nothing else going on. I'm just there with myself in that present moment and I'm breathing. Okay, I'm breathing in toxic, harmful chemicals. So if I remove those and then I just replace it with a bit of presence and mindfulness and meditation for 5 minutes that I would normally have the cigarette for, voila, you know, like, and I put the cigarettes down and I haven't had one since, you know, and that was a while ago. So, and I know that I can do that. I can connect with myself, but that isn't something I've always been able to do. It's something I've had to teach myself how to do. And I've had to get really open and honest, like real honest with myself.
I've had to suggest that some of that smoking was down to oral satisfaction as well.
Yeah, possibly. I do like to talk.
References to depth as well. So.
I do like to talk. So it shut me up for a while. I think people were probably quite happy with me doing it, but my daughter was mortified. She was like, I don't like you smoking. Why do you do it? You know,
did you start eating a lot more when you gave up though? Did you find that you were then replacing the smoking with the hand to mouth and eating?
No, not particularly. Maybe for the first week or so, yes, but not particularly. But I actually believe that was because instead of having a cigarette, I was taking a moment to have like a mindful moment and get very present and connect with myself and almost do like a 5-minute meditation. You're not hungry in that moment. You know, if you're fully...
I smoked from the age of 12 to 26. Yeah.
We're so dirty.
You know, I can relate to the whole smoking thing. You know, it's one of those ones, but like now I just, the smell of it repulses.
Oh no, I mean, it's disgusting. It is disgusting.
I gave up. It definitely was a contributing factor to my weight gain. I ate more. I mean, I had orange fingers where I just used to eat satsumas all the time.
At least it was from eating satsumas. If I ever had orange fingers, it would be eating like Cheetos.
I didn't get fat from eating satsumas. It was like double whoppers and double fries that was going down with the satsumas. I got overweight because I ate too much. I drank too much, and I was oblivious to what I was putting in my mouth. But definitely giving up smoking was a contributing factor to wanting that constant hand to mouth action.
No, I understand that. I do understand that. I definitely chewed a few pens. And although I'm not one for chewing gum, but I did buy packs of gum, like just for the first week to kind of like, it was almost like a just in case. I was trying to give myself something that if I felt the urge, I could go to that if I wanted to. I'm actually quite lucky. I know not everybody is like this. I have quite an addictive personality about stuff, but I can also drop things as fast as I pick them up. And I actually think that that's, again, like, just, I feel like that's the reverse side of the coin of addictive personality, is that you can pick stuff up and drop it real fast. Like, the second I decide I'm done with it, I'm done with it. Maybe it's like that whole, people who have like OCD about things being clean, they're the same people that turn into hoarders. It's that black or white, all in, all out, all white or all shite, like whatever. But as we're talking about that, and that concept of real self-awareness, and really working on building that relationship up with yourself, because that is always going to be the key. Yes, we need to educate ourselves, as well as I do, educating yourself about food and about nutrition, how the body works, how we can become friends with our bodies and work together. That's where the magic happens, when we get that real higher level of self-awareness in those situations. But we touched before on that concept of body dysmorphia. You were saying that when you were at your absolute biggest and your heaviest, you had no idea that that's the size that you were.
No. And, no, I just didn't. I didn't at all. A couple of examples I can give for that, really. I went into a shop with my sister, and I'd gone from being a size 12 to 14 to, I picked up a size 16 jacket, couldn't get my arm in it, not even the 18, and like I put the 22 on, and I was like 27 years old, and I was like wearing skirts because I couldn't fit into jeans. But it was not in my head. I was thinking, these shops are making clothes too small, and my clothes must be shrinking in the washing machine. I looked exactly the same in the mirror. It wasn't until I saw that photo and my eyes nearly popped out of my head when I saw that photo. I was like, who the fuck is that? Because that is not me. And I was like, due to be getting married. And I was like, I am not going to be a plus size bride. That is not who I want to be on my wedding day. And the thing is like, this is going to sound as if I'm kind of, contradicting myself, but I'm not. So stay with me here. When I was on that rock, I felt like, oh yes, look at me sat on a rock and feeling all good about myself. And one of the questions that I do ask myself as well, where I was oblivious to this weight that I'd gained until I saw that photo, was I truly happy, or was this a warped perception of happiness? Because in the same light, I was eating a lot for fulfilling happiness. I was very hungry all the time. I was eating a lot anyway. But as I mentioned and I touched on before, I had a heart scare. So for as happy as I may have thought I was, or not quite realising I was unhappy, because it was supposedly a bit subliminal, my health was on the line. So I hadn't got to a point where I was like, oh, gaining a few extra pounds, that's not good for my health. It was beyond that. I was having sharp pains and I was admitted to hospital, and I had a nurse who was giving me a hard time about how much I weighed and having such a young baby. Really quite ferocious with me. I thought she was an utter bitch, but I guess now she was trying to give me a wake-up call. But there's that one thing of thinking you're happy, but perhaps not really realising or knowing what real happiness is in a true sense. You asked as well, money or happiness. I had a bank full of money. Maybe I perceived that to be happiness, or added to some happiness. But what I will tell you now is, knowing the life that I live now, knowing what I've done every day since then, I was not happy. Because I have a completely different outlook towards life. The things that I can do every day would not have been possible with my health as they were. And it was integral for me to, I think it would be doubtful whether I would have gone on to have had a second child with the way that my health was in such decline. Would I even be around now? You know, some of these things I really need to consider are fact, is that at the young age that I was, my health was on the line. I had health problems and I was oblivious to it. So body dysmorphia, not being able to see yourself as your true reflection or seeing yourself as somebody else, I was completely bubble wrapped from where I actually was in life. I had no idea of how life could be when I was in that position. I had no idea of what opportunity I could give myself, or how different I could feel about myself, my body and my wellness at all.
That's really interesting. I think that, you know, that old saying, you know, denial isn't just a river in Egypt. The human mind is a really complex and interesting thing, isn't it? Where we can actually be in complete denial as to what's actually going on in our reality in that moment. And if you look back, I mean, we haven't gone all the way back in your past to kind of, you know, you touched on becoming a recruitment consultant, but your driver for becoming a recruitment consultant came from, you know, you were living in a, you know, 8-floor tower block apartment in the roughest area of Birmingham, you know, had no fridge.
Yeah.
You were hanging your milk outside in a bag to keep it cold, you know, so you had no money.
I used to wash my clothes in my bath, Charlotte. My electric would be pinging off because I'd be buying the fags rather than sticking the money in the electric meter. I didn't come from, I grew up on a council estate, but, you know, I didn't go without as a kid. Yeah. My parents provided for me great, you know, we used to go on foreign holidays, had a lovely bedroom, lots of things for Christmas. So I wasn't an underprivileged child, but my parents split up at a young age. So for me, I had to go out and work, and then I was always having to buy my own things. So by the time I got to 21 and I was living in a council flat with a suitcase full of clothes, I was living, you know, without very much. I didn't have very much at all. And seeing that it is possible to make a lot of money was appealing to me, you know. I'd met people who were in the recruitment business whilst I was out clubbing and pubbing at the weekend. But, you know, for me, I was living for the weekends when I was young. Who doesn't when they're in their early 20s? Who isn't living for the weekends? But I didn't have something to fall back on, and I needed to make the changes for myself, and hence getting myself into recruitment. And I think this had a big part to play in my weight gain as well. Sure. So if we go back to the figure of somebody who's pubbing and clubbing at the weekend, a smoker, somebody who's, you know, I probably would have a pot noodle a day. That was like my diet. It would be a healthy day if I got a banana in there somewhere.
Better be chicken and mushroom, otherwise we're not going to be okay.
Quite often I probably wouldn't eat, or maybe a fish finger sandwich on the way back from the club. You know, it was an alcohol and totally induced lifestyle. But there came a point where that wasn't the life that I wanted, and I set my sights on recruitment, and I got into that life. So very quickly I changed then, and I'm in a sedentary life where I'm the first person in the office. I don't take a lunch break. I'm the last person to leave, entertaining clients in the evening, sat at my desk eating, sometimes procrastinating about what I should be doing and eating more, and giving up smoking. So, you know, these things accumulated to my weight gain over a number of years. We don't wake up one day having not eaten a salad and put on 5 or 6 stone. It just doesn't work that way. And in the same way, you can't lose the weight by having one salad either. It's an accumulation, and you don't see it coming when it comes like that. But your lifestyle, the way my lifestyle had changed from one end to the other. And let's just be honest here, I haven't had to flick back to going out on the clubbing scene and living off a pot noodle a day to take it back. But I have had to change my lifestyle to be able to sustain my results, but to things that are sustainable, healthy, that make me happy. But, you know, we're a consequence of our actions.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm just thinking, like, you know, if you've gone from living a life where you're having to like eke by, you know, struggling for money and using what little money you had to like go out and have fun and kind of, you know, do things that were less responsible and all of that kind of stuff, to then being like, do you know what? I don't want to live this life anymore. I want money and security and success. And, you know, you're a very driven person. You always have been. Like the way that you've gone in and gotten your jobs and become such a success in the recruitment industry and now in the fitness industry. But when you went into that world, you know, I asked you the question, love or money, and you said love. But if I'd have asked you that question when you were living in that 8th floor apartment,
it would have been money.
in Birmingham, it was money, right? So then you go into being a recruitment consultant and you're making money and you're working in the city and you've got all the stuff that you didn't have before. And actually, I can see how, as you're gaining weight, but yet you feel like you're being successful. And that was in your mind, what you equated to happiness was having that success, having that money. You know, it's a bit of a disconnect from maybe who you truly are deep down, but in that time it was what you valued as successful and important. It's what held importance in your life, and that's what you work towards. So I can understand that, and how your mind could have tricked you into believing it was like a false happiness, you know.
This is the thing as well, it's like our perception of happiness. And I said this in the TED talk as well, so I'm going to say it again here, I hope you don't mind, Char.
No.
I did sort of quote that it doesn't matter how much money you have in your bank account. Now, I'm saying this as somebody who has had no food in their fridge, freezer, like I said, all these things, hanging the milk out, blah, 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 blah. And I've waited for the clock to strike midnight to walk, because I didn't have a car, across derelict wasteland in Ladywood. Please look up Ladywood, how rough that place is. I lived in Canterbury Tower, and I walked across there to the Tesco's because I hadn't eaten for 2 days and I'm waiting for my salary to drop to go and buy food. So yeah, absolutely, you asked me that question back then and my driver would have been money. But then I come from a situation where the recruitment business has had a turnover of 7 figures, and I've been on the other side of the coin. And I tell you now, the money in your bank account does not make a difference on who you are. It's what you do with your day. And if you are not happy in the process of putting that money in your bank account, the money in your bank account will not make you happy. So you could think of a diet a little bit like a job, okay? So it's very, very much the same. If you went to work, and we spend 8 hours a day working, 80% of our life is designated to employment. So if you want to spend 80% of your life doing something that does not make you happy, it is irrelevant how much money you're going to earn at the end of it, because none of that matters. None of it matters. And it's exactly the same when you're setting your sights on a diet or trying to achieve some kind of fitness goal. If you don't enjoy the process, that end game or setting a destination is going to be so short-lived because you've not enjoyed the process to get there. Whereas if you think about the process and enjoying what you're putting into it in the everyday moment and forget about an end line, then you've succeeded anyway, because you're working towards a sustainable lifestyle every single day. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So for people listening in, if there's people who are, you know, on their own, a transformation journey, whether that's if they're trying to get stronger, fitter, healthier, lose weight, lose fat, you know, put muscle on. What I mean, we all have our own goals. People who are struggling with their food, I think we've already established that you have to do some real internal work. This isn't just about changing what food you put into your body and getting out on more runs or a different kind of training modality. Like you have to do some inner work. You're going to have to look inside yourself, ask yourself some difficult questions as to why you're doing what you're doing, why you're making the choices that you're making. Do you have some unresolved things like some emotional attachments to your food and your eating? And then maybe get some answers, you know, and some help and support with that. However, all of that aside, if someone was coming to you and, you know, there's people listening, can you give them some real, like a tangible approach, you know, something that's really practical, what they could start doing tomorrow as far as sitting down and taking that personal consultancy approach to their own lives to start making positive changes?
Absolutely. So whether you are halfway along your journey, whether you think you know it all, or whether you're just starting out, it never hurts to make a note of what you're doing at the moment. So just stop and just reflect. Okay, what does my current routine look like? Let's just have a little look at my current routine and what do I enjoy about that routine? Why do I do it? Like you said, the why is so important. Why do we do the things that we do? Okay, so have a little look through it. And if there are things that you're doing that really serve you no purpose, that you're not enjoying, ask yourself why you're doing them. And think about what you could be doing instead. So really just have a little look at yourself. Write it down. Imagine like a school timetable, if you like. What time do you get up in the morning? What do you do when you get up? And be honest, because the only person you'd be lying to is yourself. But, you know, what do you eat? And then what are you doing? Have a little look at how long you're going without food throughout the day. Or if there are things that are causing you stress and how you react to those things that are causing you stress and how can you change your reaction to them, or how can you change your response, or if they can be removed or changed in what you're doing. Really have a think about it, and not just exercise and food, but think about your job, what you're doing with the kids, your sleep routine, all of these things, and then plan ahead. Just plan a day ahead. And think of it like, and this is something that I learned at recruitment, the Moscow method, doing your must, shoulds, coulds. Every day this company would make us, with our day planner, we had a lovely Hill McGlynn day planner, all binded, it was beautiful, leather, all of that. And we would have to, because we'd have to make 100 calls a day. How are you going to make 100 calls a day? Well, you'd have to break it down to where you were going to make those calls. So you would have to have a list of roles that you were going to be phoning people about, or where you were going to collect those candidates' details from, how you were going to get referrals. You would have to intricately plan out your day. And I use this when I try and plan ahead now, a bit of a creature of habit, and I believe this is integral to making things happen, especially when you have a busy life. You need to make sure that you know when you're going to do something if you want to do it. And if it's not that important, reschedule it for another day. So anyway, think about what must you be doing. So things like you must be doing are your work commitments, anything that's absolutely essential or integral, put those down. Think about how much time you're going to allocate to these things. And then think about what you should be doing or what else you could be doing. You know, focus on the positives. Quite often, what we're trying to do is cram somebody else's ideal into our already very busy life without any idea or forethought on how we're going to do that. You kind of, I don't know, you've taken on this new diet, looks great, I've seen the results for it, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do this great fitness plan that goes with it. But already, you're absolutely rammed with your daily commitments. And you've got no idea how you're going to fit this in. So you try and do it anyway. And then you end up feeling like a failure because you're not achieving it. So you forget about it. And then you move on to something else. And this is where the unhappiness comes from. Whereas if you know you've got a busy day coming up, you're back to back on that day, you've got some really important things to do. What other time do you have available? Is it important that maybe that's a rest day? that you change your rest days around and you rearrange them. Look for the gaps. Or, okay, have I got something that's planned in tomorrow that could perhaps wait until another day? And just take it each day as it comes and plan ahead, and make sure the things that you want to do, the things that you enjoy doing, are in that day. You know, whether that's a phone call or a meal that you want to prepare or cook, anything that you enjoy doing that makes you feel happy, make sure that that's included in your day and that you make time for that as well. But if you review your habits, understand yourself and what it is you do, why you do it, and then you put a bit of forethought into what you want to be doing the next day, you'll have a much greater chance of success. And even if you don't nail everything on your list, it doesn't matter. You can try again the next day. Don't be so hard on yourself. Leave yourself some room for progress for the next day. You know, it's just as simple as that.
Absolutely. And whatever you do, that's great advice, Natalie. I love that approach. And I do think that being able to plan and put some forethought into things is definitely the way forward for achieving success in whatever goal you're trying to reach. I think it's really important, as well as a bit of a side note, to not compare yourself to anybody else throughout that process. Mm-hmm. You know, especially if, you know, someone's like, oh, let's try this diet, or let's try this exercise regime over the next 30 days or whatever. And that's fine. It's always actually a lot of people, that community feel and that group approach to things very often helps motivate people to push together and support one another and have people to be accountable to and all of that. So it often works really, really well. But don't compare yourself to anybody else, because what works for you isn't going to work for them, and what works for them isn't going to work for you. Being afraid to fail and comparing yourself are going to be the two, you know, killers of authenticity and truth of who you are. So
absolutely. And, you know, in recruitment, I worked a vertical market, and that means that you very much have the same skill set of candidates, you know. And in recruitment, when you've got the same skill set of candidates, their qualifications are a given, because they've gone away and they've got this qualification. What grade they may have got from is a variable. But one of the things that's really important when you're trying to establish a new role for an individual, or you're finding an individual for a company, comes into their personality as well, and who you're looking for them to be going to work with. Are they going to get on? You know, in this vertical market, their qualifications are a given, and the things that stand out are the individual drivers. Does that person want to work on a particular type of project? Have they got a particular type of personality? Is it a big team or a small team that's suitable for them? What about the distance that they need to drive to work? These are things that we probably think about for ourselves when we're thinking of for a new job, you know, in the capacity of what you want to do. And it's very simple to take that same concept and think about it when you're thinking about your food and your fitness habits as well, and how you want to do things in other sense of your life. So thinking of it from a point of view from, okay, so you just, sorry, Charles, something just popped up on my bloody screen here. Isn't that
right?
When you're doing
You're glowing.
I'm like, oh, what's going on there? Boom. Yeah, so when you're looking at an individual from this point of view, it's also important that, and from a fitness trainer's point of view, we get told, us personal trainers get told to look for our niche market. We get told to look at who we should be representing. And the thing is as well, within that niche market, for example, the majority of people that tend to relate to me are people just like me, moms or working women. I do have a number of male clients as well, but I tend to have quite a proportion of people that are female and have already had children, and not one of those are the same. every single one of them is just like the vertical market of candidates. Everybody has their own unique personality and their own unique likes and dislikes, foods that they like, or social background, or religious beliefs, or places they want to go to on holiday, and the reason that they want to go there, or the things they want to do when they get there. So it's exactly the same, and it's really important that when you look at these things on a day-to-day basis, food and fitness, you think of it just as the way you would if you were looking for a new career move. Where do you want to be? Why do you want to be there, and how you're going to get there, and what's going to make you happy in that process.
I love that. And I love that your approach really is an approach to life in general. Like it's applicable to health, fitness, nutrition, career. You know, it can be used in so many different aspects of your life. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us, Natalie, because I think that's something that people can really grab hold of and start to do today. You know, that auditing their own life, and then asking themselves the hard questions of what, why, how am I going to move forward, you know? So thank you. I mean, you and I could literally talk all day. There's a million and one things I know that we haven't covered that we could still cover. But what I'd like to do now is just wrap everything up and ask you one final sort of question that I'm going to ask everybody on the podcast. And this is a question, it's a deeper question, but it's something I want you to really think about, because what I'd like to do is give listeners a chance to understand, you know, we all weather the same storm. We're all different, as we've discussed in this podcast. You know, we all we're not all in the same boat, but we're all still weathering the same storm of life, and we all have highs and we all have lows. But what I want to know is, can you tell me about a time in your life when you felt the least empowered, where you felt, I don't want to use the word weak because I don't believe that anybody is weak, but where you felt the least empowered, the least strong, at your lowest, sort of rock bottom place. But from that place, what is it that really gave you the strength to endure and rise up and inevitably grow into a stronger, empowered woman that you are today sitting in front of me?
So that's a deep question, Shah. It's a deep question, and there was a time in my life before I lived in the flat, where I was living in South Wales, and it was a time before my thyroid had been diagnosed, and I was emotionally at rock bottom, and I never really understood the reasons why, because I didn't understand myself, which is something I know now. I didn't know that I had thyroid issues, but I also didn't understand why I was feeling the way that I was, and I was at absolute rock bottom. It's probably a conversation that we can have on another day, but it was very integral to, I suppose now in reflection, I wouldn't have seen it then, but I had no control over decisions that I made. Well, for as much as we do have to take responsibility for our decisions, I believe I was in a place where I'd lost all sense of my own self-worth, and became I didn't think really. There was no thought process in it because I didn't have any value to myself. And once I'd been able to establish that my thyroid wasn't working correctly, I was able to get more clarity. And through my journey, I've been able to reflect back on why I felt like I did. But most importantly, not understanding yourself or giving yourself the time to really reflect on who you are leaves you more vulnerable to making decisions that you can later on regret or feel like you've got no way out.
Yeah, I mean, that resonates a lot with me, Natalie. I'm sure a lot of people have been in that position where they've just felt so low, um, worthless, valueless, and they don't know why, and they don't know how to get out of it. And I know I've had my own experience um, on a couple of occasions where I've sort of felt like I don't want to live in this life anymore. It wasn't that I wanted to die, but I didn't want my life. I didn't want to wake up tomorrow and still be living the life that I had structured around me. It wasn't for me anymore. And I couldn't see a way out. And I didn't know how I was ever going to get out of it. And I'm sure that there's millions of people in the world who've experienced that exact same thing. I know for me to come out of that, whenever I've had that feeling, I always have some weird little, it's going to sound a bit fluffy, but I always have some weird little moment of almost like spiritual clarity of like, do you know what? It's going to be okay. Like, no matter how dark it is, no matter how bad you feel right now, this doesn't have to be your life. Like, this doesn't have to be you. We can find a way out. Like, we can find a way through. And I know that not everybody does, but that's how it's been for me. And I really appreciate you sharing that with us. And, you know, what do you think it was for you that gave you the strength in that dark time to really endure and pull through in that moment?
In the one side, the reason that I felt wanting to escape that moment and not wanting to be in that moment was because I didn't realize my own self-worth. I didn't see any value in myself. I didn't have any belief in myself. And sometimes you have to get to that lowest point to then you find some fighting thing in you that tries to pull you back from that point of zero self-confidence, not wanting to be inside myself, to one small thing just pushes back. And I think it's fair to say, you know, some people think I'm a little bit crazy and why do you do what you do? And it's because I've reflected on myself and I know that I am worth saving, and I know that I have an incredible sense of self-worth, and I've seen how amazing the human body is and how we can adapt to change, and I've seen myself achieve things that I would never have thought possible. Now, these things aren't exclusive to me. We all have this within us. We all do. So, you know, it's never over until it's over. And if you look within yourself and you really ask yourself and you give yourself that time and that moment, just that small piece of appreciation, just to let yourself start to fight back a little bit, you will start to see what's really possible. But it's all within, it's all inside us.
Exactly. And that is the purpose of this Blonde and Strong podcast. Like I said in the intro, you know, the whole point of this is for people like you to come on and share your experiences and your strength to allow people to really unlock the strength that they already have that's inside them. We just don't always remember it's there. Sometimes we get disconnected with ourselves and get really caught up and carried away with all the stuff externally that's going on around us. And I think very exactly the same as what you're saying, like in my darkest moments, it's been that little voice inside me, that little bit that I've shoved deep down that I'd been completely cut off and disconnected with, that was like, do you know what? You've got this. We've got this. Like, stop what you're doing, reconnect with yourself. Like, we are strong. we are capable of so many things. Like, this isn't the end for us. Like, we have more to achieve. We have more to do. So let's get on with it. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off. Let's keep moving forward. And I firmly believe, I've seen it in people that I've coached. I've seen it in people in my life. We all have that. We all have access to that. And I just want to help people reconnect with that part of themselves and really be able to thrive and just achieve greatness that they came on the planet to do. Like, that's what we're here for. So I appreciate you being a part of that and being my first guest on here.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Thank you for having my back, woman. So I just want to say a huge thank you, Natalie, for coming on and being my very first ever guest on the Blonde and Strong podcast. I'm sure we'll wrap again. So can you just tell people where the best place to find you is if they're interested in connecting with you or mentoring or...
Well, you'll probably most likely find me in my gym or office in my house.
I don't think they can come there though.
But if you want to reach out to me, you can hit my Instagram, send me a message. No questions are too small. You know, any question or reach out. Yeah, I always try and get back to as quickly as I can. I have a website, natalieguyan.com, and I'm on Facebook as well. So be lovely to hear some feedback from Char's podcast, or if anybody's got any stories they want to share or reach out in any way, it's always good to communicate.
Amazing. And, you know, if anybody has resonated with anything that was brought up in this podcast, if you want to speak to anybody, I'm sure it'll be the same for Natalie. Our DMs are always open on Instagram. You're more than welcome to reach out and we'll do whatever we can to help. If it's anything bigger that's beyond our sort of scope of practice, we have lots of people we can connect you to. So by all means, don't be a stranger. I just want to tell you how absolutely grateful I am that you've taken the time out of your busy day to sit down and listen to us talk. And I really appreciate you. If you could please leave me some feedback, 5-star review. It'll really help us get the podcast out for other people to be able to listen to it too. And I can't wait to speak with you again. Take care.